us through. But since when has impossible ever stopped you? Friday's disappointment, Sunday's empty tomb. Since when has impossible ever stopped you? This is the sound of dry bones rattling. This is the praise, make a dead man walk again. Open the grave, I'm coming out. I'm gonna live again. This is the sound of dry bones rattling.
Welcome to Kamloops Alliance Church online. I'm so glad you're here. My name is Chris, and I'll kind of be your host and preacher guy for the weekend. Hope you're having such a fantastic weekend as we're enjoying the last days of October. If you are new to our community, maybe you're sent this link, you heard about our church, you're new to Kamloops, or you're thinking about, maybe I should go to church. We're really privileged that you're here. If you just text new to the number on the screen, we'll just send you a little gift card to a coffee shop just for being here. We want to say thank you. No strings attached, we promise. Also, there is a number at the bottom of the screen, same number. You can text connect to that number, and you get a great text message on Friday afternoons of all the great things in our community that really exist to help you know Jesus and to make him known. We also have a podcast, and so as you're maybe cooking dinner or picking up the kids or going on a run, whatever that is, why don't you tune in to our podcast? We're in season 6. Our first episode just launched last week, I believe, with Brent Dolfo. It's going to be a fantastic season, so you can get that wherever you get your podcast. There are a billion things, bajillion billion things going on in our community. Great things, fantastic opportunities for you to grab a friend and be a bringer to, or to get discipled or connected. So lots of them that are going on. If you go to our website, KAC.ca, that is the place you need to go. If there's one I would highlight, it's this Wednesday night, October 26th, How Technology Will Destroy Your Soul, taught by Dr. David Wood. David is a friend of mine, former colleague of mine. If you want to think really well about technology and a whole lot of other things in our culture, please come in person on Wednesday night. It'll be so good to have you, 7 o'clock here at the church. Guys, we have and continue to press forward into our exciting future with faith and with radical generosity. And so we have a 6% increase in our budget this year over last year. That is faith-filled. And so we're inviting you to participate with us financially. Jesus has given so much to us, and so we're just stewards of it. And so if you want to partner with us financially, it costs money to do these online things. It costs money to bring in David Wood. It costs money, but it's worth it as we know Jesus and make him known here at KAC. So visit our website to give if you want to do that. If this is your first time, we're just privileged that you're here. Now, let's worship together.
Together, strangers, neighbors, buddies one, children, generation of every nation of kingdom come. So don't let your heart be troubled. kingdom come. Holy Spirit, guide my vision, help me see the way you see. Always Jesus, ever Jesus Christ, in all is Christ in me. Holy Spirit, guide my speaking, words of grace and truth abound. Let my lips be filled with stories of your mercy that I found. You're the light, you're my path, you're
Hey, my friends, welcome to Kamloops Alliance Church. My name is Chris, lead pastor here. Just privileged that you're going to spend some time with us as you have been, as we continue our series in James. I believe this is week 6 as we go through this ancient letter written 45 to 47 AD by Jesus' brother to a scattered group of people who follow Jesus who are going through really, really hard times. And James has been really direct and really helpful, I think, for our church. When you first meet somebody, often what you ask, or the question that you answer, is, what do you do? Tell me about what do you do? And so we usually talk about job or training or how we spend our time, right? It's a very, very, very general question that we ask in the West. As I have been interacting with Norm McCollum, who is our Indigenous elder, and just the Indigenous community, Indigenous people, that's not the question they ask first. It's not what do you do? They actually ask, where are you from? What land do you belong to? It's really, really interesting insight. And really, I think at the heart of it is that the idea is that the land that you come from and the people that you're surrounded with have shaped so much of who you are. So not what do you do, but where are you from? And so we all are from different places. When somebody asks you that question, it's not so much of your doing, but your being. Where have you originated from? So for me, I was born in Lloydminster, Saskatchewan. If you don't know Lloyd, Lloyd is right on the border of Alberta and Saskatchewan. It's an oil and gas town. It's very, very blue collared. So when I say I'm from Lloyd or Lloydminster, if you're from Lloydminster, you just say Lloyd. I'm from Lloyd. People already assume, you're probably, oil and gas, blue collar. But when they look at me, they're like, you're not oil and gas, blue collar dude. No, because I moved right away to the Lower Mainland and grew up more in urban centers. But the idea that I'm from Lloyd brings to mind a certain type of person. And it's probably the same for you, right? Where are you from? Well, I'm from so-and-so. I'm from this place. Because we know that the environment in which we were born into and raised shapes so much of who we are and how we think and how we speak. Now, there's also probably some limitations here that we don't really want to just be judging people from where they're from. We want to allow people to exist in their own space without prejudging them or painting everybody with the same brush. So I'm not advocating for that. But my point is that we all have originated from some place that has an enormous impact on our lives. And so there's rivalries, right? If you're from Edmonton and you have friends in Calgary, there's always kind of a rivalry because you project onto them, or that's what Calgarians are like. And even here, friends, I got to bring it up, right? Kamloops and Kelowna. I grew up in Kelowna, and there's this rivalry, right? Oh, that people in Kelowna, that's what they're like, and people in Kamloops, that's what they're like. And there are some, of course, as I mentioned, negative things about that, but there is something that's true about that. That what we're getting at is the environment in which you grew up in shapes so much of who you are. And this is a question that James is asking us this weekend, is where are you from? To where do you belong? And it's not the physical location that he's asking. It's to what wisdom do you belong? Because the place that you belong is going to affect so much of who you are. Are you aligning yourself with God's wisdom that shapes a person, or are you aligning yourself with earthly wisdom that also shapes a person? And really, this is kind of part 2 from last week, talking about the word, about your words, the power of the tongue. And James is asking, can a fig tree bear olives? No, one tree can't produce 2 different types of fruit. It's impossible. And what James now is saying is actually, we need to kind of figure out where you belong, where your allegiance really is. Is it in godly wisdom or is it in worldly wisdom? Because that is the basis of how you are speaking, of how you are showing love or favoritism. This really, for James, is a huge issue, the crux of the problem. So here it's simple. It's earthly wisdom versus godly wisdom in the 5 verses in James chapter 3 that we're going to be looking at. So earthly wisdom, James 3, 13 to 16, let's unpack it. Who is wise and understanding among you? James here is bringing up what he talked about last week with the idea of teachers. He brings up the teachers again. Who is wise and understanding among you? Wise and understanding all the way through Jewish thought and literature were always paired together. These were the people who thought deeply about all of the important things about life and the world. Who is wise and who understands ultimate reality among you? Let them show it by their good life. This is an interesting take from James. Again, James is so concerned about action. The image that we have about those who are wise and understanding are those people with massive beards, with big, long black suits, who have a pipe, and behind them are just, shelves and shelves and shelves of books, and they're at Oxford or Cambridge or an Ivy League school, and they're writing, and they're erudite, and they say big fancy words. That's the image that we have of those who are wise and understanding. And then James comes and says, no. You want to know who the wise and understanding are? Let them show it by their good life. It's not just their intellect that matters. Let them show it by their good life, by deeds done in the humility that comes from wisdom. Wisdom here is the thesis of James in this part of his argument. Humility that comes from wisdom. So the true people who are wise aren't just the teachers who are talking a lot. No. They're actually living a good life full of faith and hope and truth and love. And all what they're doing is done in humility, which is this forgetfulness of the self, a humility that they're set free from anxious self-promotion. So much of our culture right now is fascinated with the wise insights and wise sayings and sharing memes and quotes and stats about all of these sorts of things that are actually really important. But James says, no. This isn't about the influencers on social media who are trying to be wise and understanding about the body or about diet or about interior design or about all. No. You want to know the wise people? The wise people are the ones who do everything without anxious self-promotion. They're not looking for you to retweet them. All they care about is the person and not themselves. They're all of their good life, all they've deeds done in humility that comes from wisdom. And here, do you see what James is doing? He's pointing out the true nature of wisdom itself. Wisdom itself is producing. It produces people who, yes, are wise and understanding, of course, but their life shows it. And they're humble. I'll never forget when I met J.I. Packer. I've shown this to you before. J.I. Packer, he's deceased now, but J.I. Packer, within Christian circles, is a brilliant thinker, brilliant mind, a lecturer, an author, a pillar of sound teaching and theology in the church. And I was at Regent Bookstores downtown on the UBC grounds. Regent College bookstore, and I'm just a little punk, and I'm looking for books, and I see J.I. Packer. At the time, he's probably his mid-80s. He lectured into his 90s, like insane. So I'm like, there's J.I. Packer, and he's got a little bit of a hunchback, and I go up, I introduce myself, J.I., like, here's who I am, and I was taking my master's degree at the time, so I was working on some paper stuff, and I started asking him theology. He had nothing but time for me, nothing but dignified me, and was interested in my life, and my ministry, and my family, and he gave me like 15, 20 minutes of our time, and I took a picture with him. And when I think about this wise person who has humility and good deeds, I think about interaction with J.I. Packer. That is the picture of wisdom that James is offering to us. Then he says, but now he starts getting into worldly wisdom. But if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast about it or deny the truth. He's talking about now the outcomes of worldly wisdom. And he says two things: bitter envy and selfish ambition. To harbor is to possess these things in our inner being. Bitter envy. Envy is like jealousy. It's like looking around at everybody else and their stuff and wanting it. Looking at your life and saying, I don't have that. I want what they have. Being discontent with all of the stuff that God has given you, how he's wired you, the body he's given you, the life he's given you, and looking around at everybody else and saying, that's what I want. Why don't I have all what they have? Envy is a desire to imitate and surpass somebody else. I want it, and I want it more than what they do. We desire things that are not ours, their relationship statuses, their accomplishments, and we want it for ourselves. And so what we do is we do this online. We do this in our relationships. We do this as you pick up your kids and you see different parents and moms hanging out together, and they look cooler than you do, or they have more things than you do. And you're looking around, you're like, why? I want what they have. I want what they have. I want their perfect marriage that they show on social media. I want their perfect kids. They do well in hockey. I want all of that. We look at all these things. That's a bitter envy. We have, and we cut at people because we want what they have. And then there's selfish ambition. This is a relentless pursuit for promotion, power, and prestige. And people who are motivated by selfish ambition create carnage because they treat people not as ends, but means to their own ends. Means to their own ends. So people just don't exist for themselves. They're actually a part of the grand ploy for my own benefit and my own success. So this happens lots in the marketplace, where you as an employee don't feel dignified for your contribution and your organization. You don't feel appreciated. What you feel is that you're just a cog in the wheel so that the bottom line increases or for your boss to get recognized. That's selfish ambition. When the main senior leaders of your organization are more about themselves than about the benefit and flourishing of their employees and their mission, this is selfish ambition. It happens all the time in the marketplace. It happens all the time in families too. That we're motivated sometimes as parents to see our kids flourish, not for their own sake, but as a means to an end of our own status or our own self-esteem. So for some of you, like, your kids' success is more about your own self-esteem than it is about their stuff. Their success at soccer or hockey or academics, and you push them super hard. Why? Because they're a means to an end of your ambition. Happens in the marketplace, happens in families, it happens in church. What? Church? Yes. It happens around here, where we use people as means to an end for our own glory, our own recognition, our own stuff. We do it when we come up here on this stage, and we sometimes have impure motivation, like selfish ambition, just as in the marketplace, not just families. It happens in the church. It happens to preachers like me. I remember when I was younger, I was able to travel, do some speaking stuff, and it was a great gift because I was able to just pack my car, my Honda Civic. I would just take off and I would speak at camp after camp after camp. I think one summer I did like 6 weeks in a row in the United States and in Canada. And at the end of camp, usually at all camps, there's some sort of reflection time with the campers. And I remember going to those reflection times as a younger leader, speaker dude, and as I heard people's reflections about what God did in their lives that week, I remember feeling this desire of wanting them to say my name. Right? They God was really good to me this week. And Speaker Chris, man, the way that he said that, or he was super funny. And I remember sitting in these moments thinking, oh, it feels so good to hear my name said about my contribution. James is just coming and diagnosing, it's not good. It's not right. Bitter envy, selfish ambition has no place. He says, in your hearts, the heart is the rudder of your life. Biblically, it's like the center of the will, the desires, and the intellect. And bitter envy and selfish ambition plant themselves in your heart, and it starts to evidence in your life, in the way that you think, in the way that you act. And he says, you don't boast about it or deny the truth. In other words, it's impossible to love God and actually have these things going on. It's impossible to build your life. Where are you from? It's impossible to build your life on godly wisdom and have these things going on. It's just, he says, don't do it. You don't boast about it or deny the truth. He says such wisdom doesn't come down from heaven, but is what? Earthly, unspiritual, and demonic. In contrast to heavenly, godly wisdom, this is the stuff of the flesh, of the earth, of the dirt. This wisdom that will lead us to envy or selfish ambition, this is the stuff of the earth, of the dirt. It's not full of God at all. It's actually against the things of God. The earthliness is the values and systems of thought represented not by God, but of the world. And so what James is saying is, pay attention to what you are believing about yourself and the world. What are you thinking about? What are the ideas that shape your life? That's what he's pressing you to understand. wisdom. Where do you belong? So earthly wisdom promises that the flashlight in the power outage is going to work. When things go dark, when things get tough, the earthly wisdom is a flashlight and you're actually going to be able to see your way. And it promises that, but it doesn't work. The power outage comes, you grab the flashlight and you turn it on and it doesn't work. When it matters, it doesn't work. This is earthly wisdom. That is earthly and unspiritual. We're going to get to demonic in a second. What I want to do, what I'm passionate about, is to help you discern your world in your life. You hopefully either come online or come in person every week. And so one day of the week, you're here. Hopefully one day of the week, you're Sabbathing, renewing your mind, all of these things. But for 6 days of the week, you live out there. You live in our world, which is where you should be. But how do you discern your world? How do you think about the world? Because the world is full of earthly wisdom that seems right, seems like the flashlight's going to work, but it doesn't. I want to give you one. There's lots that we could do, but I want to walk you through one thing in our world that seems like it would work, but it actually doesn't. It's earthly and it is unspiritual. It's actually against the things of God. So to do so, I want to talk about wisdom that simply isn't wise, all right? Wisdom that seems right, but it actually isn't. And to do so, I need you to put your thinking caps on, all right? So I need you to go, maybe unfortunately, dust that thing off, that bad boy. You got to dust it off. Put your thinking cap on because we're going to do a deep dive and you need to be with me, all right? So put the coffee away, put the waffle away. I need you, okay? So here we go. Wisdom is not wise. We're talking about the one way that seems right in the world, but actually doesn't follow. It actually isn't right. I want to introduce you to a word called epistemology. And you're like, yeah, good thing I got my thinking cap on. See, I told you to put it on. Epistemology. Epistemology is simply the idea of the theory of knowledge. How do we know things to be true? Those are epistemic questions. Really, for the last 500 years, philosophy has been concerned with epistemology. How do you know things are true? So a lot of our epistemology in our culture is scientific, right? I don't believe anything that's not scientifically proven. That's epistemology. Okay. How do I know things to be true about the world? Well, for me, as a Christian, it's the Bible. That's epistemology, okay? It's a theory of knowledge, how you arrive at things to be true. And I want to talk about a modern epistemology about the world, okay? And that's what I want to introduce you to. And it's simple, but it maybe not sound simple, but it's this contrasting view of the world of mimesis or poiesis, okay? Good thing you have your thinking caps on. Simply put, mimesis says this: in a mimesis world, my job as a human being is to go outside of myself into a world that has intelligence, creativity, design, and purpose. And I bring all of myself to this world and ask the big questions of life about what is true and about what is the meaning of life and who am I in this big world and what is love and how do I figure out my desires. And I go outside to this created world that has order, intelligence, and I conform myself to it. Poiesis is actually the opposite. That as I go out maybe with all of these big questions about who I am and about what love is about, and what is marriage about, and what's the point of kids, and what is death all about, all of these big questions that humans have been asking forever, I go out to this world, and instead of a world of intelligence and design and purpose, there's actually no intelligence. There's no design, and there's no purpose. All there is raw elements in which I am there to make sense of and create meaning to. So there isn't anything I conform myself to. Rather, I then project meaning onto it because there is no intrinsic meaning to anything. So it'd be the difference like this. I go to IKEA and I buy a desk and I throw all of the materials out onto my floor from IKEA. And in a mimetic view, there's instructions that I have to read in order to put together this IKEA desk. Perfect. That's a mimetic understanding. In a poetic understanding, there is no instructions. There is no meaning. All there is are the raw materials, and I get to make the desk the way that I think the desk should be made. So Carl Trueman, in his book, The Rise and Triumph of the Modern Self, talks about a mimetic view versus a poetic view. And here's what he says. He says, put simply, these terms refer to two different ways of thinking about the world. A mimetic view regards the world as having a given order and a given meaning, and thus seeing human beings as required to discover that meaning and conform themselves to it. Poiesis, the way of contrast, listen, sees the world as so much raw material out of which meaning and purpose can be created by the individual. So the answers to the biggest questions of life are not discovered, they are invented. And my friends, which world do we live in? We don't live in a mimetic world, we live in a poietic world, where all of the big questions of life about love and sex, about gender, about purpose and meaning are not given or discovered, rather they're invented. And so we live in a very poietic world where all of these things, it's just up to you, and our job is to affirm your view of what all of these things mean. They're not given to us, they're rather invented. And I get why that would be such a good thing to do. Right? Let's get rid of all of the tradition and religion that would say and impose all these harsh things on us. No, let's get rid of that and let's make our own definitions so that we can create meaning, my own purposeful meaning. I get how attractive it is, but it's problematic because it doesn't offer good answers to some of the most important questions of life. It doesn't have any meaning to it. There's no telos. There's no end to the human life other than what you create. There's no end to sexuality. There's no end. There's no proper end to even my embodied person. It's all just up for rearrangement. There's no end to anything. And so what ends up happening is you get all of these billions of people in a poietic world going their own directions about their own meaning and their own creativity about all of the most important questions of life, and then we yell at each other. Why? Because there isn't an adhered understanding that we need to go outward to something, to someone, to an intelligent creator to help us understand some of the most important things about life. And so Truman continues. He says, in a poietic world is one which transcendent purpose collapses into the immanent. So all of the big things actually just collapse into the here and now, and in which given purpose collapses into any purpose I choose to create or decide for myself. Do you know how stressful it is to decide for yourself about some of the biggest, most meaningful things of life? That may account for some of the anxiousness in our culture. It may. He says, human nature, one might say, becomes something individuals or societies invent for themselves. This Truman is getting at. He's borrowing some work from another philosopher named Charles Taylor. Seems like it's good wisdom. I get it. But when the darkness comes and the power is off and you go to turn it on, it doesn't work, because it doesn't satisfy some of the biggest cravings of your life. And so as a Christian, I reject the modern fascination with poietic cultures and worlds and instead embrace a mimetic culture where my wisdom isn't founded on what I can create, but my wisdom is found on God himself, who in Jesus Christ loves me and has the best intentions for me. And my job is to conform my life and my decisions and my priorities and my money and my kids and my marriage and my sexuality around the good design he has for me. He's not out to get me. He's not out to steal from me. He's not out to give me a boring life. As I conform my life to him and his image, I receive life. That is godly wisdom. And he says this wisdom is earthly and unspiritual, and it is demonic. This is a very, very, very interesting statement because he's simply saying that it seems like it's good and true, but there's actually an insidious darkness about this wisdom, that it will produce things that you never thought it would or could, because it cannot deliver. And so he says, for where you have envy and selfish ambition that arise from this earthly wisdom, there you will find disorder and every evil practice. You're going to find chaos. Where are you from? In which wisdom do you live? Is it an earthly, unspiritual wisdom that will result in chaos? Like, look at your life. Is it chaotic? Is it full of discord, envy, selfish ambition? It may be evidences of an earthly wisdom, of a poetic view of the world that you have embraced, that you create your own meaning instead of a mimetic one. Okay, need to go. Godly wisdom, last two verses. But, he offers us a different way. But the wisdom that comes from heaven, this is godly wisdom, not earthly wisdom, not the stuff of dirt, but godly wisdom is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate. So you have pure, peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy, good fruit, impartial, and sincere. You have 8 categories, or 8 realities of wisdom, of godly wisdom. So think about, it's coming Christmas time, think about when I was a kid, it was always the Eaton's catalog. I'd get that bad boy, and I'd be looking through, October, November, just here's what I want. Here's the great things, here's the Road Warrior hockey goalie set that I would want, or whatever. This, James is bringing in front of us, kind of like Paul does in the fruit of the Spirit, as a catalog of grace. Saying, which one? Which one? Which one of these 7 do you need or want to experience? Not one of us would come to one of those 7 and be like, I don't know. Yeah, no, I'm not sure about being full of mercy. No, right? None of us are going to come to that list of 8 things and say, I don't want them. These are the things that every single human being in our world desires and wants. And what James is pointing out right away, he's like, it's not going to come from your life as is, life as status quo. It actually comes from a life of wisdom. So let me just outline some of these. Let me bring them to life as we think about and close with godly wisdom. First thing is purity. Pure religion is what James has been wanting from the beginning. Pure religion, pure that is undefiled. Remember a few weeks ago we talked about what is pure religion? To James, it's actually picking up the phone and calling a widow. That's pure. It's unblemished. Who can bring a charge against that type of faith? Pure religion for James is loving the marginalized and the outcast, those who can't defend themselves. That, to James, is what he's concerned about. And he says, this wisdom is pure. So you want to be that type of person? You need wisdom. Pure, with unblemished. It is then peace-loving. What does this purity look like in your life, in community, in the church, and in our world? It is, first of all, peace-loving. This is the idea of shalom. When things are as they should be in your life, peace-loving, not selfish ambition that uses people for their own ends, but peace-loving as it should be. So once a year, we take our staff away for 2 nights. All of our staff, we just want to bless them. They work extremely hard. And so that happened this week. Monday night and Tuesday night, went to Eagle Bay with a large group of our team. And one of the exercises the speaker got us to do was to, on behalf of Jesus, speak life into other people. And so half the group got in the inner circle, and the other half of the group got in the outer circle. And so you were aligned with one person, and then the speaker would just simply say, why don't you just take a minute and ask Jesus about the brilliance of this person you're standing in front of? What would he want to say to them? So there's a really prophetic moment, actually. So for, half an hour, 40 minutes, we just would do this. And then we'd step to the left on the outer circle, and then you do that with the next person. And the Kleenex boxes were being passed around like crazy as a community of people, not full of selfish ambition, but in peace, the way that relationships should be, spoke life to each other. Words that edified and healed and brought life. As we talked about the power of words last week. This is godly wisdom, full of wise and understanding, to stand in front of somebody made in the image of God and bless them. That's peace-loving. It's not full of discord, as James just talked about, or every evil practice. No. Godly wisdom ends up looking like peace-loving in community. Considerate. Think about this idea of considerate. This is a description of peace. To be considerate is to be humble and gentle. It's the opposite of harshness and anger. One of the things I love about Indigenous people, I don't want to categorize people, but as I went to northern Saskatchewan with our Indigenous elder Norm, and I sat with these people, beautiful people, some loved Jesus, some didn't. The amount of considerate ethics and posture of these people were beautiful. They're not harsh. They weren't harsh or angry, but rather were considerate of me. They're a guest. I'm just a non-Indigenous dude in their territory, and they were so considerate of me and gentle and not trying to prove anything. And so as I think about considerate people, I think about my friend Norm and people like Norm, Indigenous people like Norm, that I often find a softness, a consideration of the other person that's so evident. Considerate, submissive. This word is an interesting word. Actually, literally in the Greek, it's the idea of being easily persuaded. But it's not about being gullible. It's not gullible, but rather a deference to others, a willingness to yield to somebody else. That's what happens. That's what arises. The good life from godly wisdom, it arises is a willingness to yield to somebody, not to stick it to them or prove your point or hang up the phone, but a willingness to yield to somebody else. Can you imagine how the world would have been different through COVID-19 if we had an ability to yield to one another? Not giving up your perspective, but an inner commitment that arises from godly wisdom to yield to somebody else. So you know what? No, you go for it. You go for it. You can talk. I'm glad to listen. This is what godly wisdom looks like. Submissive, full of mercy and good fruit. Full of mercy and good fruit is all about loving people in real time. Loving people in real time. Showing up for people when they need it. This is a life of action to James. Full of mercy and good fruit. Show me by your deeds. That's what he's going to say. So, I'm completely useless when it comes to anything useful. So when it comes to like fixing things around my house, I've told you lots about that. So this week, come back Wednesday from our retreat, go to turn on my car, doesn't work. It doesn't turn over. I'm like, oh, great. I don't know what to do. Got to phone a tow truck. Is it the battery, alternator, starter? I have no clue about what to do. So what I do is I tell my friend Tim, who's our executive pastor, and Tim's handy. He gets it. Like he grew up and he knows stuff. So as I'm preparing this sermon, Tim's like, you know what? I got to go do an errand anyway. I got to go I'll go buy you a battery because we figured out that was a problem. I don't know how to exchange. I don't know how to put in a new battery. I don't have any idea. So literally like a few hours ago, Tim goes to Costco, buys a battery. It would take me way too long to find the right type of battery to buy. It would take me way too long to actually put it in. He got this like little meter out to make sure the voltages were like, he just nerded out. And I just saw him and he helped me do something that it would have taken me so long. All of my knuckles would have been bloody and I would have been tempted from last week not to say good words. But here, my friend Tim is taking time out of his day to show up for me in my area of weakness. And James would come and say, full of mercy and good fruit. That for Tim, it was an interruption to his day, but it meant so much to me. Impartial and sincere was the last fruit, the last idea. What arises? Where do you belong? If you belong in godly wisdom, here's what ends up happening is you are impartial. You don't show favoritism, as we talked about a few weeks ago, and you're sincere. Your motives are true and right. People around you don't think, what's in this for you? There has to be something in this for you. No. Impartial and sincere. When I think about that in our community, I think of our elders. Just had an elders meeting last night. And we deliberate, we talk, there's rigor. But I want to tell you, your elders are impartial and they are sincere. There's a sincerity around that room to make Jesus known in our community. There's a sincerity in that room to make sure all of our finances are exactly the way that we present them. There's a sincerity in that room to make hard calls in right ways. There's an impartiality in that room that our heart is to reach all people in our city, whether they can do a lot or a little, whether they work in downtown office buildings or whether they live on the streets of Kamloops. There's an impartiality to make Jesus known amongst all people. And I get to see that once a month as our elders come together with their sincere desire to make Jesus known. My friends, we're not perfect, but I can vouch for their deep character and the wisdom that they rely on. So where do you live? Where do you feel most at home? In ungodly wisdom that's showing itself, it's manifesting itself with selfishness, with discord, with rivalry, with jealousy, with selfish ambition. Or James is wanting to ask you, are you finding it in godly ambition that winds up making you pure and merciful and all of these beautiful things? How do you get it? My friends, all of those things are Jesus. All of the things of godly wisdom are found in Jesus Christ. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, Paul, talking to both Jews and Greeks, says this: Jews demand signs and Greeks look for wisdom. Fascination in Greek philosophy with wisdom. What is a wise life? With wisdom. But we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to the Jews and foolishness to the Gentiles. But to those whom God has called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God in miracles is what he's referencing, and the wisdom of God. The wisdom of God. What Paul is doing here, my point is this, what Paul is doing here is he's saying Jesus is the wisdom of God in the flesh. So if you talk about wisdom, let's talk about, all these things, where do you belong? In order to get that, how? You get it from Jesus, who is the wisdom of God. In John chapter 1, John's gospel begins by saying this: in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. John here is pointing out that Jesus is the Logos. The word here for word is a Greek word, logos. And this word logos in Greek thought and philosophy for hundreds of years leading up to this moment was always the logos was this rational principle, the wisdom for life that people would want to get. And what John is saying about Jesus Christ is that he is the Logos. He is not just this impersonal idea, but he is a personal God. He is the reason and the purpose behind all things. He is the wisdom of God in the flesh. And so what John is saying is that Jesus isn't just a good idea. He is the only idea in which all things find their coherence in. He is the intelligible thing that we go to find and make sense of your existence, of your life, of your marriage, of your family, of your sexuality, of your desires, of your suffering, that we go to Jesus, who is the eternal Logos in the flesh. And if he is all of what underlying reality is built on, why would you go to anybody else for your wisdom on how to live your life? Why would you go to anything or anyone else online or in the bookstore for some sort of nugget of earthly wisdom that when your suffering comes, or your kid hits the ditch, or you lose your job, and darkness comes into your life, and you go for that flashlight, and it doesn't work? Friends, Jesus is the one who has brought us close to God through his death and his resurrection, and has died for those moments where you like your name said, like me. He's died for those moments in which we have created meaning from our own lives, and it's ended in disaster. Jesus is the one who comes and dies for all of my missteps. For my heart, the seat of my intellect, my desire, and my emotions that is not towards the things of God. He has died for that in order that I would know God, that there is a mimetic reality of the world that I am drawn into in love. He is in loving union towards me. So this is the question for you. Do you know and love Jesus? He is the wisdom of God, the rational principle around all of the universe that has made himself available to you. So the question that you're going to discuss, think about, journal through is, what wisdom are you drawing from, and how is it presenting itself in your life? Take a moment in honest reflection and ask yourself that question. What wisdom are you drawing from? Is it the wisdom that comes from union with Christ, or a wisdom that comes with union from the world? So Jesus, search our hearts by your Spirit, that our hearts would become awakened to the things of life and eternity, not the things of dirt and flesh. Thank you for James. Continues to search our lives. May we bear the fruit of union with you. In your name I pray. Amen. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time. Okay, thanks for joining us again. A million bajillion things going on in our community. KAC.ca is your place for all things KAC and hopefully Jesus too, if I could say that. We're also on social media on Facebook as well as Instagram, podcast. We also have Revive this Sunday night, October 23rd at 6:30. We'd love to see you as we want to be a praying church. Privilege, really, honestly, so privileged. You could be doing so many other things, but you would spend time here with us, KAC Online. So grateful. We hope it's helped you love Jesus and love people. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Oh a troubled mind, it isn't anxious, it's not the restless kind. Your love's not past.